It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Kim Hammer Show here on 101.1 FM The Answer. You can watch us live on my Facebook page, either the Kim Hammer Show or Kim David Hammer. You can tune in or view us on Facebook. If you'd like to call in to today's show with any of the topics that we're going to be discussing today, you can do so by calling 501-823-0965, 501-823-0965, or you can email your question to kimhammershow@gmail.com, kimhammershow@gmail.com. Ben, sitting over here, who's always great to be here on Saturdays, is monitoring that. We'll be glad to get your questions up on air today. We'll get right into the show. This is what I would consider a good show for you to be listening to today because we have all the way from Kansas City, Bridget Patterson with the Epilepsy Foundation of Missouri, Kansas, and she is in town today. A very important topic to her personally, something that we're trying to get done here in the state is to get the Epilepsy Foundation of Arkansas up and rolling. We've been working on this now for about a year. Bridget was in town yesterday for some meetings with some of our state agencies, and so she's agreed to lay over today to be here to talk not only about epilepsy and the activities that go with it, but other seizure disorders as well. So, Bridget, welcome to the studios today. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So, first of all, on a personal level, you're from Kansas City, which makes you what kind of a fan?
That would be a Chiefs fan.
But were you watching the game in the stadium in the snow last week, or were you on the couch by the fire? Which one?
I was on the couch by the fire.
Yeah, so you're a half-hearted Kansas City fan is what that tells me. That was a game and a half, especially being played in the snow the way it was.
It was a great game, and I actually provided my tickets to another great fan so they could experience that in person.
Very good. I hope they're warmed up by now because anybody that was in the stadium that day probably took a couple days to thaw out, but it was a great game. All right, so tell us about, first of all, the Epilepsy Foundation of Missouri and Kansas, and give my guests a little bit of a comfort level about your affiliation with them, just so they know I didn't bring you off the street to talk about this today.
Absolutely. My son was diagnosed with epilepsy, will be 15 years coming up in January, and at that time, I just really wanted to be a resource for my family. Didn't have a clue about epilepsy, didn't know anybody, any friends or family that were having and experiencing seizures before. So during that time period, went back to school to work on my credentialing for electroneurodiagnostics, which is just a big fancy word that I did brain studies and I read and analyze EEG. And I wanted to take that information and apply it to our family so I could have a better understanding of what Colby was dealing with and what seizures look like and how to better serve my family in that aspect. Got involved with the Epilepsy Foundation of Missouri and Kansas as a volunteer through efforts to raise awareness, and then came to work for them about 5.5, it'll be going on 6 years. And throughout the foundation, through Missouri and Kansas, I provide seizure education and programming for families affected by seizures.
So you've actually been in the state now for the past year because we were able to secure a little bit of funding to allow you to come down here and just kind of get things going, build some credibility, within the state. So far you've been out to, I think you've been out to the Dawson Co-op's been working primarily this past year with the school nurses. Is that correct?
Yes. I kicked off in August a whole series of back-to-school nurse trainings that we did. We went to Batesville and Jonesboro. We're in Plummersville, Branch, Arkansas, Farmington, Harrison, providing seizure education, specialized seizure education to, I believe we hit about 450 school nurses and provided that education to them to take back to their schools and to their school staff. And from that, I've also been invited back to those school districts to provide that seizure education throughout the school staff and not just the nurses.
And if somebody doesn't have a family member with epilepsy, this may be a non-starter conversation for them because it doesn't affect them personally. But given the numbers that you have identified in Arkansas, how big of a problem is this in Arkansas? How big of a medical issue is it we're a population of a little over 3 million as a state. So give us some perspective about how this is impacting Arkansans.
Absolutely. Our studies show and our numbers based on population that 1 in 10 will experience an epilepsy, a seizure of some sort over at some point throughout their lifetime. So 1 in 10 will have an isolated seizure event. Our numbers also show us that 1 in 26 will develop epilepsy at some point over the course of their lifetime. Throughout an Institute of Medicine epilepsy across the spectrum document showed that 1.8% of adults 18 years and older have an active epilepsy diagnosis, and that would equal out to be 41,000, little over 41,000 people in Arkansas that are 18 years and older that would have an active epilepsy diagnosis. And then 6% of youth 17 and younger, and those numbers figure out to be about little over 43,000 17-year and older individuals that would have an epilepsy diagnosis. So, with 3 million, you're talking 1 in 10, that's 300,000 people at some point over the course of their lifetime that will experience seizures.
And one thing people may have a misnomer about is people think that individuals are born with epilepsy, but in reality, it can develop later in life. It's not necessarily something you're born with as much as you just identified. It can occur anywhere along the process of life. Because you mentioned your son was diagnosed when?
At age 8.
Okay. So
Yep.
Of those potential 300,000, do we have any breakout as to how many of those are born with epilepsy versus those that develop it over their lifetime?
Not so much as just who's going to be born with it. There's an array of common causes of epilepsy. Could be from brain trauma or perhaps a brain lesion or tumor. And it really doesn't matter whether it's malignant or benign cancer or not. It's still a mass in the brain that's disrupting that communication of neurons. Lead poisoning, infections of the brain such as meningitis, encephalitis, measles, those kinds of things can contribute to seizure activity. Maybe it was a brain injury at birth. Maybe that umbilical cord got wrapped around that infant's neck. Therefore, there was a lack of oxygen for some time, now resulting in seizure activity. Maybe it's just abnormal brain development from the get-go. Maybe that's just the way God made them. Maybe there was something in the arterial function of the brain or something structurally in the brain that did not form as it should, therefore resulting in seizure activity. It could be stroke, brain bleeds, those kinds of things. That's not an exhaustive list by any stretch. If it's not something like that, it's usually a genetic cause. And we've got a gazillion genes in our system, and there's not testing for all of them. So sometimes that diagnosis is called idiopathic, and that just means a disorder of unknown cause. So sometimes we simply just do not know why someone has epilepsy.
Okay, so we've got various entities around the state, and just public disclaimer, we've been working on this for a year, but we met with Department of Health yesterday, had a very enlightening meeting with those folks. Appreciate them, especially the couple that came in. They were on vacation, but they came in to have the discussion, which I think communicates it's important to them.
Absolutely.
They didn't just do it as a courtesy. It's important to them. And so, it seems like in our state, what we've identified is that everybody is doing a little. For example, UAMS, I think they said yesterday, has opened up a clinic, dealing with addressing the epilepsy issue. So it seems like several entities in the state are dealing with epilepsy, but the one thing that we're trying to do through the Epilepsy Foundation or the establishment of it is to bring some cohesiveness to help promote and help make people aware of the resources that are out there. In the Missouri and the Kansas area, what was it like before the foundation got involved, and what is it like now that the foundation has such a valuable place in Missouri and Kansas?
Mm-hmm. The Epilepsy Foundation was established in 1961, so it's been around for a really long time, and we work hard to lead the fight to stop seizures, find a cure, and overcome the challenges created by epilepsy. And I think having valuable resources within the state and in those communities can help answer those questions that maybe parents have because they have a new onset diagnosis. I was that parent. I was that mom who felt overwhelmed and inundated with information and great big words that I had no clue what they meant, not knowing what the outcome could be or the possibility of seizure control might look like. Epilepsy is definitely a journey, and it's not always just understanding the first aid to how to deal with a tonic-clonic, or what they used to call a grand mal seizure. Sometimes it goes way beyond that, and it's the effect of epilepsy beyond seizures, the mental toll that it takes, the frustrations, the anxiety levels, the feeling of isolation, those types of things. And I think having all these entities that we've discussed with and had the opportunity to talk with, and having them bring and put down what their resources and how we can work together to complement those entities that are already bringing something to the table for epilepsy.
So, as far as what you see the Epilepsy Foundation of Arkansas and the role that it would play in the resources that we have now, how do you see that paint the tapestry that would show the picture of how it would play out here in Arkansas, based on you having been here a year, gone out to the school, working with the school nurses and all the various meetings that you've had?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to do in all of our
And
communities.
that's not criticism. Listen, just so nobody goes calling anybody, that's not a criticism. Everybody
Absolutely
we've
not.
met with is receptive to this.
Absolutely.
In fact, they're welcoming to it. And so this is not a question that somebody who's currently doing something is not doing their job. It's just that this is another layer of support to a significant segment of our population that has a great need. So just disclaimer, want you to know that everybody has been receptive. But go ahead and paint the picture now, how you see it would play out in Arkansas.
Right. Well, I really hope that what we can bring to Arkansas would be all the things that we bring to Missouri and Kansas.
And Lord knows we don't want to be behind Missouri and Kansas, okay? Okay? Just for the record. All right, go ahead. Interrupted you.
You know, we want to bring education. And that's not, again, just the seizure first aid. It's everything that goes along with a seizure disorder. It's complementing these like UAMS attained their level 4 accreditation in April of this year. That's huge. We really love to highlight level 4 facilities because of the treatment options that they can bring. Arkansas Children's is also a level 4 facility. We want to work together to help with that education and the medical services that they provide. Not only the education aspect to individuals and families, but in the schools, like we've talked about, and how we can help those students be successful. And when the student's successful, the teachers are successful. And understanding epilepsy it's a spectrum of disorders. And for that to play a key role in a student being successful is going to make them a contributing factor, individual in society. I think also bringing those social services to the state, those connect groups that we partner with our industry partners to bring caregivers and individuals with epilepsy together, those support groups, those educational seminars that we have an opportunity for the neurologists and the epileptologists here in the state to contribute to and bring that level of knowledge to our communities here. I think all of that is important. Raising awareness within our EMTs and firefighters and all of that, and there's any misconceptions of how those people with epilepsy may view someone coming to help them.
Or law enforcement.
Or law enforcement, absolutely. You look at a complex partial seizure that might affect somebody's behavior. That could be misconstrued as maybe they're on drugs or alcohol, or there's some type of mental health disorder going on. And it could be seizure activity. So having those conversations, and it's just truly been a blessing that all the folks that we've talked to have been so welcoming and want to play a part in this.
You know, I truly believe, and most people that know me, if you don't, you're about to find out, I'm in the ministry. I've been in the ministry for 42 years. And I really believe in divine appointments. Some things have happened this week that when you see it happening, you got to say, man, that isn't anything but God that did that. So I'm sitting here checking my messages and everything while you're talking, and I'm not going to call the person's name because he's a person of prominence, but he's listening to the show. And he said, great show. Most people don't know that I have epilepsy. I would have never known this guy has epilepsy, especially in the position that he holds. So there are people that are walking out there amongst us that have this, and maybe they choose not to reveal it because it's a personal thing. But at the same time, you don't know when that person that you encounter may have an episode that would trigger, an epileptic seizure or anything like that. And so just the general awareness and knowledge to be able to react appropriately, because I remember my father-in-law, he had seizure activities secondary to an illness where he had a brain surgery, and he had to deal with epilepsy from that point on. And my wife was telling me when I was telling her about the show today, how that, her mom, whenever he would have a seizure in the old days, she used to run and get the wooden tongue depressor and stick in his mouth to keep him from swallowing his tongue and everything. We don't do that anymore
Absolutely.
today, do
we do not do that. We never, ever, ever want to stick something in somebody's mouth that's having a seizure. And I can promise you, if you stick your fingers in there, you will not get them back out the same way you put them in.
It is lockjaw to the 10th degree. So let me ask you to do this. What should people do? Because epilepsy is the word and the platform that we're having the discussion on, but you deal with seizures of other disorders as well. So give us a free education so my people can walk away from the show today with 3 continuing ed units. That's what I always try to do, make sure they leave more knowledgeable than when they tuned me in. What should a person do if they encounter somebody with a seizure, and how would they recognize that it's actually a seizure and not something else? Other than should they dial 911, or what should they do? Walk us through it.
Well, if it's a first-time seizure and you have no history on that person whatsoever, you're going to consider that a medical emergency and call 911. If you would know that that person has epilepsy and what their type of seizure is, then you would go with the relevant protocol of whatever that is. So, for instance, with a tonic-clonic seizure, say you know that this person has epilepsy, they fall to the ground and have stiffening. They rename tonic-clonics or grand mal to tonic-clonics because it's just a better representation of what happens to the body. Tonic means you get very, very stiff and rigid, and clonic is the convulsive aspect of that seizure. So that's just a description of what kind of seizure they're having. So with a tonic-clonic seizure, well, with any seizure, you're going to stay calm and track time. Tracking time is huge because oftentimes someone might have a rescue medication that is supposed to be given at 3 minutes into the seizure, or if the seizure lasts longer than 5 minutes. So knowing what time it is going to be huge. If you're out there in the general public, check for a medical ID. Maybe that brings some light to whatever this person is experiencing. Then we're going to protect them from possible hazards. We're going to move tables, chairs, any sharp objects. If they have glasses, we're going to take those off. We're in the winter season, the colder air. Oftentimes, someone might have a hoodie that has like ties or Velcro around their neck. We're going to loosen anything that might be obstructing any kind of airway, whether that's jewelry, clothing, whatever. And then we're going to turn them on their side. And we do this for 2 reasons. One of the reasons is if they've bit their tongue, because a person's not going to swallow their tongue. It's attached, right? You can't swallow your tongue. But a person can certainly bite their tongue during a seizure. And we're not going to stick anything in their mouth to try to prevent that.
Why not?
Our tongues are one of the fastest healing organs in our bodies. We've all bit our tongues before. Usually you don't even remember that happens after the fact. But if they did do a number on it, we're still not going to stick anything in their mouth because we could mess up dental work, we could damage gums, chip a tooth, that kind of thing. So we're going to turn them on their side. One is if they've bit their tongue or they're foaming at the mouth or they have any kind of secretions, we want that to drain out of the side of their mouth and not something that they can choke on or aspirate back into their lungs. The other reason we do it is to help maintain an open airway. If you were to lean your head back and try to talk at the same time, you would notice that your voice changes, and that's because there's a lack of oxygen during that time. So those are the two reasons that we turn somebody on their side. Then we're going to cushion their head. We're going to protect that head. If with those convulsions, they could be banging their head into whatever the floor surface is. We want to make sure that we protect that so they're not creating an injury of some sort. And then we're just going to play out that seizure. We're not going to hold them down. We're not going to restrain them. You can't stop the body from that seizure activity of occurring. We're going to monitor their breathing. We're going to be watching that time in case they have a rescue med that has to be administered. And then we're going to provide that, that support to them. That emotional support aspect of things, it's tough having seizures, and especially in front of your peers in a school setting or at a ball game or in a restaurant or something of that nature.
Right. And you can be unfairly targeted for bullying and other purposes, because sometimes whenever a seizure occurs, they also might have a tendency to lose control of their
absolutely.
faculties or soil themselves, something along that line. So, one of the things I think that's good to advocate for is that if you know somebody that has epilepsy or seizure prone, you need to be their best ally and support them and encourage them, and not, help them emotionally as much as physically.
Absolutely.
Because it does wear them down. One thing that came up interesting in the meeting yesterday when we were meeting with DHS, one of the DHS staff, it gets real personal real quick when you mention this word, because I know I started off saying, well, how many people out there really have it, kind of going down that avenue. And in reality, as the conversation's gone on, just like it did yesterday, there's more people out there that have it than we probably know about. They're either just protecting that information, or maybe they even don't know what they have, but they know something's going on. They just haven't gotten the right hands to get the diagnosis. Sitting in that meeting yesterday, I found it interesting that one of the higher up staff members said, I've got a friend who's just gone through this situation involving a job. What about epilepsy and job discrimination for people? Is that something that the Epilepsy Foundation can assist in?
Absolutely. And unfortunately, it happens. We wish that wasn't something that happens, but it does. And through advocacy and education, sometimes it just comes down to maybe that employer doesn't understand the disorder. And in our world, in my family, we don't live on what ifs. What if could be anything, and we just have to know what to do in the event that a seizure occurs. But yes, we do provide that advocacy, whether that goes for the ADA, the Americans Disability Act, and making sure that everything's online and that individual hasn't been discriminated against, or that they are being discriminated against, or just helping to support and work through the means of helping them keep their job. It's illegal to fire someone through the Americans Disability Act because they have a seizure. And a lot of people don't know that. And sometimes it's a real fight with some of these companies that may feel like that individual is a liability to them. And unfortunately, it happens. And we really work to provide the education to some, so they understand the disorder and can help them in the event that a seizure occurs.
All right, we're going to be getting ready to go to the bottom of the hour for our hard break. And one of the things that I wanted to point out to the people that are listening, if you're watching Facebook Live, and just FYI, I'm retaining the services of somebody to help. We've got our Facebook up, the Kim Hammer Show Facebook page, and we're going to be getting our website developed over the next couple of weeks. I have secured somebody that's going to help facilitate all that and get that done so that you can go to the website and Facebook page and get some of this information. But for those of you that are watching Facebook, I'll show you there's a full page, and there's a second page of all the places that you've been, all the meetings that you've already had in this past year. And so we're gaining traction. But this year, we will launch the effort publicly and try to garner some support to get the Epilepsy Foundation presence established here in Arkansas. And I think that'll be good for the citizens. I think it's going to be good for everyone that currently is involved in it, whether you're UAMS, Department of Health, school teachers, employers, everybody, because it does have such a significant impact on a large population. When we come back from the bottom of the hour, we're going to take a few more minutes of your time, if you will, because what I want to talk about specifically is epilepsy in the classroom, and how does it limit and prohibit kids from being able to learn to their full potential, and what do we need to be able to do to help that? All right, you're listening to the Kim Hammer Show. My guest today is Bridget Patterson, all the way from Kansas City. Yes, she is a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Unless it's 30 below, then she's a couch fan. But we're glad to have her. She is with the Missouri-Kansas Epilepsy Foundation. Want you to come back after the break at the bottom hour. We're going to pick up with her. And then Robert Steinbeck's going to come by for a little bit. We're going to talk politics, impeachment, and all that fun stuff going into Christmas. Kim Hammer Show, come back.
Salem Media Group Little Rock, bringing this holiday message home.
Hey, I'm Airman Rogers. I'm from West Memphis, Arkansas, currently deployed here at Camp Taji, Iraq. I want to wish my family and friends back home a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I love you, Mama.
Bringing holiday messages home from the troops serving overseas. Salem Media Group wishing you and yours the very merriest of holidays and safe returns.
Have you purchased an annuity? Did you know you could be losing thousands of dollars in hidden fees and expenses every year? You know, there are ways that could help you keep this money in your pocket. There's a new generation of annuities that could eliminate these unnecessary fees, pay you far more income, and protect you from stock market downturns. Learn how you could immediately improve your annuity with a free analysis from David Lucas Financial in North Little Rock. To get your free analysis, call 501-222-3368. What if you could eliminate unnecessary fees, earn far more income, and lower your risk? Call 501-222-3368. That's 501-222-3368.
Annuities are backed by the claims paying ability of the insurance company. Advisory services offered through David Lucas Financial, a registered investment advisor.
You belong in an environment that challenges you to reach your fullest academic potential, an environment that allows you to learn more about God and strengthen your faith as you enter the world, and an environment where you can have fun with peers who'll become your best friends. You belong at Harding University. Choose from 100 majors to find your calling and achieve your academic and career goals. World-class faculty teach from a Christian perspective, and you can study alongside students from all 50 states and 50 countries and territories. Or take your studies abroad for a semester in places like Australia, England, France, Greece, Italy, Zambia, and more. The Wall Street Journal ranks Harding University a top 3 college for students' engagement with their professors and their education. The College of Nursing is ranked the #1 program in Arkansas. Harding values meaningful connections while fostering personal and professional growth and success. Come find your place and your mission here. Visit today at harding.edu. That's harding.edu.
Arkansas Medical Staffing attracts and retains the most professional, skilled personnel by offering excellent pay, benefits, and a wonderful adventure in healthcare.
I'm an LPN, and I've worked with Sonia for more than 8 years. Arkansas Medical Staffing is a great company and a great place to work.
Arkansas Medical Staffing wants to thank you for the great opportunity to provide our communities, our cities, and our state with the best nursing staff Arkansas can offer from an agency. They strive to execute the will to be the compass of the supplemental healthcare staffing. Their objective is to keep Arkansas nurses right here at home, taking care of our family and friends. Nurses, you know it's not a pretty job, but it is the most rewarding. You are the heartbeat of healthcare. And if you'd like to join the Arkansas Medical Staffing team, or you need professional caring nurses, call them today, 501-224-1010. That's 501-224-1010. Arkansas Medical Staffing, caring professionals by your side, 501-224-1010.
Big Rock Fun Park, the place to go for big family fun, has some really big news. Big Rock Fun Park now has the most state-of-the-art batting cages in Central Arkansas. With these all-new batting cages, every single batter can choose their speed and the height of their pitch. No more settling for old, outdated batting cages for your practice. Bring your future MLB star or even the whole team to Big Rock Fun Park, where you can rent by the person or by the team. For more information, go to bigrockfunpark.com.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show here on 101.1 FM The Answer. Privileged to have in all the way from Kansas City, Missouri, Bridget Patterson, who is with the Epilepsy Foundation of Missouri and Kansas. Glad to have her in. We're going to pick up this part of the show by asking, what about epilepsy as far as how it affects kids in school? And one of the stories, let me just kind of, set the teaser a little bit. One of the stories I remember you telling is about, how that sometimes kids are having seizures and teachers don't even realize they're having seizures because they're not, flailing around on the ground, all the things that people think of whenever they think about seizures. So educate us a little bit about epilepsy seizures in the classroom and in the school setting.
Sure. That was one of the difficulties that we experienced with Colby in our family. He was originally diagnosed with absent seizures, which are brief, quick staring spell kind of seizures. They're not the tonic-clonics. He's not, convulsing or stiffening or anything like that. They're just very quick, brief staring spells. So during that time that those epileptiform discharges are occurring in his brain, he has a loss of awareness. He's not going to lose consciousness, but he's going to have a loss of awareness during that time period. So he's missing bits and pieces of the conversation. So it's very problematic in the classroom if a teacher is giving a lecture or giving direction, or if he's trying to work independently. Those brief, quick staring spell kinds, and sometimes there's outward clinical symptoms, and sometimes there's not, and that's how they go missed so often, because if you're not just looking straight at him when it happens, sometimes you see it and sometimes you don't, especially if it is not exhibiting or manifesting itself with any kind of outward clinical symptom.
So a student could actually be perceived as being disruptive in the classroom or not paying attention or staring off into the sky.
Absolutely.
When in reality, it could be the
seizure activity.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's often misdiagnosed or undiagnosed, or misdiagnosed as ADD, ADHD, all those kinds of things. I remember a teacher at one point through, the elementary ages said, would you please go talk to your physician or Colby's doctor about ADD medication, because he just can't stay focused. The likelihood, it didn't have anything to do with ADD. Colby doesn't have ADD. It had everything to do with seizure activity. And his doctor said, if I were to put him on ADD medication, the likelihood that would lower his threshold for more seizure activity to occur. Now more seizures are happening, and now he's sitting outside the classroom door doing his homework because he's deemed behavioral. And it has nothing to do with behavior and everything to do with that seizure activity.
And I'm going to step off subject a little bit, but I'm involved with PANS and PANDAS, and I'm not sure you're familiar with what that is, but it's a disease that kids experience as a result of being misdiagnosed with strep throat.
Yeah.
And it's, they're just missed, and then it attacks the brain and everything. One of the things I find interesting as I dig into more and more about the mental health field, about the possibilities increasing of misdiagnosis, because we just want to throw drugs at kids, all with the idea that they, this popular phrase of ADHD, which I'm not diminishing, because legitimately some kids do have ADHD. I get it. But, everybody's got to be diagnosed in their right slot in order to get the right medication, in order to get the right treatment. And sometimes I wonder how many kids are either misdiagnosed because of lack of education or some other contributing factor, and we're inhibiting giving them the best chance to get the best education they can. And that's just kind of a rabbit with a really deep rabbit hole on it that we'll talk about another time. So if a parent has a child who maybe they are getting notes from school saying little Johnny's being disruptive or just not paying attention and everything, what's the steps that they should take? I mean, sure, go to the primary care physician, or what do they do from there for that parent that's searching for the answers?
Right. And I think too, that totally leads back to those teachers being educated on what different seizure types look like. So then they can take that information and apply it to little Johnny in the event that that would be, what he's dealing with. But let's say they're seeing, he's staring off into space, and they would have that conversation with mom, dad, grandma, caregiver, whomever that might be, to open up that conversation. And then either have that referral from their primary care physician to a neurologist or an epileptologist to do an EEG, to do a brain study. Now, I've also experienced with kids Colby has had a clean EEG, meaning that he didn't have any seizure activity during that particular test. And that just means that he did not have a seizure at the same time I had those electrodes glued onto his head. So it's very possible for somebody to be experiencing seizure activity and it not be caught on a first-time study. The majority of the studies I did were 72-hour studies, which gave us longer time period to try to catch any abnormal brain activity that was being that was happening. So absolutely, get in there and do those testing. And I always say, if it warrants investigating, investigate. Even if they've had a brain study that's not shown any seizure activity, and it's just been your typical 45-minute to an hour study, but there are still outward clinical symptoms that are happening, check with your physician, see if they would be willing to maybe do a longer study and see if something else is going on that just was missed.
Okay. So are you willing to go out and do education in our state? I know you're affiliated with Missouri, Kansas, but you, for the last year, obviously have been working because we're able to secure a little funding to help make that happen. But what about if somebody's sitting out there saying, boy, we need to have an education course in our school, or we need to have an education course at our place of business or church, daycare center. Where are you available to go? And if so, how is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Our state funding will carry us out through the end of June. And I am more than happy to schedule those training sessions. They can reach me at my office number, which is 816-444-2800, or they can reach me by email, which is the letter B as in Bridget, last name Patterson at EFMK, and that's the acronym for Epilepsy Foundation, Missouri, Kansas.org. So 816-444-2800 or bpatterson at EFMK.org.
All right. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put that out on my Facebook post if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
And then
Thank you.
at least they can get that. And if you'll get a pen and piece of paper handy, if you're saying, dadgummit, I didn't have a piece of paper handy, just hang on a second. I'll give that to you in a minute. Typically, how long does a seminar, educational seminar, last when you go in? An hour, hour and a half, or probably as little as much as they want?
Yeah, absolutely. If they can give me an hour and 15, I can put it in there. An hour and a half is ideal because there's always questions. These trainings always arise at a certain situation that they've been dealing with, that's like, oh, hey, we've got this child in this situation. What do you think? So an hour and a half is perfect.
Okay. So who, other than the co-op, are some people that you've sat in front of and given presentations to? Because I think you've given it to even some doctors and some nurses. And what's the normal audience that you're used to presenting to?
Anybody that will listen to me.
Okay.
No, we've the community health nurse specialists and those community advocates that are a part of that. The schools, and that's all school staff, not just teachers, and special education departments. You had mentioned the impact on school and learning, and seizures can cause short-term memory problems. And after a seizure, coursework may have to be retaught and retaught and retaught. And seizure activity without any obvious physical symptoms can still affect learning. And then you've got to spin off of the medications that can cause drowsiness, behavioral changes, inattention, concentration difficulties, all those kinds of things. And students with epilepsy are more likely to suffer from low self-esteem because maybe they have limitations. Maybe they're not included in every aspect of school and those activities. So those school settings, not just those nurses, but those special education teachers, the paraprofessionals, all school staff, those kinds of things. Employers, maybe they have an employee that has a seizure diagnosis, and they want to better know how they can serve him or her in the event that a seizure occurs. So really, anybody. I work with advocates all across, like I said, with the ADA, with foster parents that are fostering a child that has seizure activity. Anything, truly.
You know, that's one thing we need to do. As you were saying that, I was kind of clicking off my head who you could go in front of, but DHS would be a great one to get in front of as far, because I know they have foster parents come in, and when they go through even like the call, which is a spiritual-based recruiting entity that helps bring foster parents in out of the church setting. Those would be some great things. So we'll work together in the next year, in order to make that happen. All right, so here you go. If you want to contact Bridget, here's the contact information again. I can tell you I've known her for a year. She is a really good lady because she came to Arkansas to get a husband. I'll tell you that. Just how long you been married now?
Little over a year.
Little over a year. So she is a smart lady. She came to Arkansas to get a husband, okay? And he's probably listening.
He is listening.
Yeah,
and just so you know, honey, I didn't pay him to say that.
Yeah, kudos to you. You're a smart man. You're married up, okay? But here's how you get hold of Bridget. It's bpatterson@efmk.org. bpatterson@efmk.org, or you can call her office at 816-444-2800, 816-444-2800. Now, you can go to like the Department of Health. They have some things up on their website, and you can go to UAMS. Like I mentioned, in fact, they just did a symposium here not long ago, which you attended.
I did. It's really good.
Yeah, and they are expressing interest in being players too in the development of this. So,
right, and they can look on our webpage, which is www.efmk.org.
Okay, there you go. So there's their webpage, and I'll get that out on my Facebook too. So if you didn't get a chance to write it down, if you're driving, hopefully you're not driving and writing at the same time, I'll put it up on my Facebook page. That's the Kim Hammer Show or Kim David Hammer. Either one, you can go up there and get the information off that. Bridget, I want to thank you for being in the studio today. I wish you and your hubby a Merry Christmas. I know you're down here and then going back up to Kansas to be with your family, and hopefully the snow's melted off by the time you get up there.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, we're doing Christmas with his side of the family today, so looking forward to that. And it's been a real pleasure to be here and work alongside of you in this initiative. So thank you very, very much.
Very good. Hey, do you see diamonds under the tree or pearl for Christmas this afternoon? No pressure there, hubby.
I
no
hope
pressure.
so.
Okay. All right. Again, Bridget Patterson with the Epilepsy Foundation of Missouri and Kansas. Look forward to future conversations, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Got to shift gears on you a little bit. I know we've just talked about a very enlightening topic and everything, but I feel a little bit compelled to talk about the activities of the last week, dealing with the impeachment hearings and everything going on at the national level. So I want to just give you a little bit of hammer tone with regards to some perspective on the activities of this last week. First of all, I think the Democrats have put themselves in a no-win situation for next November. I'll use an analogy of something that happened this past week. I don't know if any of y'all saw it on the Facebook post where the captain of the Carnival ship was trying to put his ship into port, and in reality what happened was he ran into the other one, and then he started to back out, but the problem was the damage was already done. I kind of feel like that captain and Pelosi probably somewhere in the last week or two quoted a very famous line where they said, "Holy crap, what have I done?" But just like that captain is probably out of a job, Pelosi hopefully will be out of a job soon as well. But the problem is they've already set sail on a course that they cannot reverse engines. As a result of what they've done this week, which now they're sitting on the impeachment papers to send down to the Senate, and it makes you wonder, why are they holding it? What is their strategy? What are they thinking? In my opinion, I think they've realized that they've really screwed up and they put themselves in a no-win situation, and they've been in this nice, safe little harbor called the House, and they've had the majority down there, and now they have set sail with the ship, and they're going to come out into open seas. And I think that when that gets down to the Senate, if it ever gets down to the Senate, they know that it's going to be dead on arrival. Now, whatever the Senate chooses to do, if they want to bring in witnesses, however they want to do, I don't think that they're necessarily compelled to do that, but they'll do what they want to do. But I think that the Democrats have put themselves in a no-win situation, and for my part, that's okay. One of the positive things that I see that all of this has done, and we're being joined by Robert Steinbeck in studio. Glad to have you dropping by today. I know it's a busy day for you and everything, so appreciate you dropping by a little bit there, Robert.
It's always my pleasure when I'm in the car and I hear your voice. I say, I got to swing by and say hello to my best friend there.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and I didn't pay you to say that either. But one of the things that unintended consequences on the part of the Democrats' actions, in my time in a political career, I cannot think of another time, at least in my history of being a politician, where the Republicans at the congressional level on the House side have been as unified as they are right now.
Absolutely. And it's in part, maybe in large measure, a function of how transparently partisan the Democrats have been. I find it comical when I hear Schumer, who, by the way, used to be my senator. You know, I'm from New York. I wasn't a huge supporter, but, you know, he did some nice things as well. He wrote a very nice letter to my mother for her birthday once. In any event, he says, well, you know, we need to give Trump the opportunity to put on witnesses, and we need to call our witnesses. But this is for Trump's benefit. Wait a second. After the Democrats put together a sham process in the House, now all of a sudden you're worried about proper procedure? Nice try. And, of course, as you recognize, Mitch McConnell said, so they're not sending over something we don't want? Sounds like a good deal to me.
Yeah. I mean, the Senate's in a win-win situation if those 100%. Things ever come down. But why would you not? I mean, to me, the question is, why would they not send it down? It's either one of two things. They're either trying to do some more political maneuvering, some gerrymandering, if you would, of the process, right, which they haven't, it hasn't bothered them to use that so far.
That's right.
Or they realize that they've got themselves in a no-win situation and they hope that this thing will just die down and go away, because America is sick of tired of hearing about the impeachment. But I think I mentioned this last week. It's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving.
That's right.
As long as it's out there, I think people see more and more the farce that this thing has been is going to put the Democrats in a position to have to explain their actions more. One of the things, and that I think that would be supported when you take a look at the polls, and there's a recent poll that's come out this past week, and just try to read it to you. The November NPR, which is the NewsHour poll, shows that right now 59% agree that it makes more sense to focus on next year's election instead of going through the impeachment process. I think the appetite for impeachment is waning
entirely.
Which is, I'd like to give that as a badge of honor to the American public.
That's right.
That they recognize how much of a waste of taxpayer dollars this whole thing has been. However, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Why wouldn't they want to go ahead and push the impeachment papers down to the Senate, in your opinion? With popularity falling off, what would be your thoughts?
Yeah, my guess is that they want to keep it in the news, and they realize they send it over to the Senate. The Senate will be done with it in 2 weeks. Boom. And then remember, it's sort of like when remember when John DeLorean, the creator of the DeLorean car, was entrapped for selling cocaine by the FBI, and he got off because he was entrapped. And so at the end of the day, he says, I was arrested and I was entrapped and I was found innocent. And so I was right and they were wrong. And I think, excuse me, the Dems are afraid that that's exactly what's going to happen to President Trump. He's going to be able to campaign on the fact that this was entirely political, demonstrated in part by the fact that within 2 weeks, the Senate said, not guilty.
But if I'm a Democrat, I wouldn't want I wouldn't want Trump impeached because of two primary reasons. Number one, I think that he is going to blow the lid off the illegal activities that we've seen some of, including the FISA court.
Right.
But as time goes on, I think the one reason that they would want him impeached is because it would remove him from a position of power. And Trump is a smart man, and they're having trouble staying one step ahead of him. He always seems to be one step ahead of them because he's not playing by the standard rules of warfare in the political arena. He is operating by a different set of rules, and they're not accustomed to that. So as a result of that, they're in uncharted water, and they're having to react to everything that he does. So if I'm a Democrat, I want him impeached because he's going to blow the lid off of it. Do you agree or disagree with that? And what I perceive is that Trump is systematically going about bringing people to the forefront, which even if the impeachment goes away, there's still going to be plenty of material that he could work on between now and November as far as the Russian probe, as far as, the FISA courts and everything else.
Just the repeated efforts to get rid of him, basically. Right. Yeah. Well, I think, look, Kim, I think you're entirely right that was the thinking of the Dems. We'll get impeachment. We'll get the popular spirit behind us. And even if we lose in the Senate, which we might, we're still going to have an uproar. But it didn't work out that way, right? Because they haven't even sent it over to the Senate. And what's the general population? What are the polls showing? Most people are saying, we're not interested. You started out with quid pro quo, then you moved to bribery, which is a term listed in the articles of impeachment, and then you came up with these two wishy-washy, mushy indictment claims. There's nothing there. The American public recognizes there's nothing there, and now the case will be dismissed within 2 weeks when it's sent over to the Senate, and Pelosi's going to look like a fool. She held back all this time saying, we need something strong, we need something strong. She got bullied into bringing, by the leftists in the Democratic Party, into bringing this impeachment process after the Russia gate went down the drain, and now she realizes, I shouldn't have brought it. Now if I go forward with it, I'm going to look like a fool. But the problem is, now that she's not going forward with it, she looks like a fool because her claim all along was, this really is important. Just not that important to send it over to the Senate, apparently.
Well, an old cliche, you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. And she's darned because she's in a no-win situation right now. And because she buckled.
That's right.
And that's why we shouldn't buckle as Republicans. And I think that's the strong statement that's being sent. And even I think it was 3 Democrats crossed over the line to vote against the impeachment. Some sat on the sideline, which to me that's a gutless position to take.
That was Tulsi Gabbard.
That's right. But the one good thing is that the Republicans are, and I don't know that they're necessarily rallying behind Trump, but they're rallying behind the principle of the matter. And to me, that's the greater of the two, because Trump will go away, but the principles need to stay.
You don't have to be Trump's best friend to recognize this is a sham. That's the thing.
Well, and one thing I put out on my Facebook post a few weeks ago, if they would do this in their house, think what they would do in your house, and your house, and your house, and my house.
That's right.
If we give them any more power. That's why you don't need to vote Democrat, because you're just building that wall that gives them that resistance attitude that they can do anything they want to do.
There's no rules.
And not be held accountable for it.
That's right.
All right. So I don't know who's doing the Democrat strategy planning, but I hope they don't fire him or her.
Exactly. Give him a promotion.
They are doing a great job for the Republican Party, and I appreciate it
I love
so
Pelosi.
very much.
I think she's handing the presidency, the re-election to President Trump. I all along have been in supporting President Trump, but she's now just handing it to him.
Well, this is a bright spot of my week because I don't know if you heard, I'm kind of jumping tracks here a little bit, but did you see where the Far Side cartoons are coming back?
I did not see that.
I think the last time he wrote one was in 1995, but I saw, and it's on Facebook, so it's got to be real.
But that's right.
But
I saw it on the internet.
It seemed like it came from a reliable source.
Right.
And I'm thinking, man, if I'm the guy that's writing the Far Side cartoon, I would come back out of retirement too, because the field is wide under harvest. You can't help but let this stuff go.
That's right.
You got to take it on. Hey, dadgummit, we're caught. Okay. 2 quick points.
Yes, sir.
Did you see where article came out by the Washington Post, I think it was, that liberal professors outnumber conservative professors on universities 12-1. Did you happen to see that?
Well, that number's wrong. It's much higher. And I'm not even joking with you. 12-1, you're lucky to get such a good ratio of conservatives to liberals. By the way, liberals would say if there's not enough women or blacks or Asians or Jews, I'm one of those, right? Or anything in a business, it's discrimination. But why there are not enough conservatives and you don't hear a peep from the liberals?
Well, and you and I tried to run legislation on that.
Right.
I'm going to have you back on the show.
We're going to do it again.
We're going to take that down a little bit deeper, because the one thing I think we do need to start turning the tide on is we've got to at least give conservatives that are in the educational system greater protection to make sure that they're not discriminated against. Because I think part of what we're dealing with today, when you see what's being done in the Democrat Party as they try to attack President Trump, is partly because people have been indoctrinated that way.
That's right.
At every level.
And they're doing the same thing in academia that they're doing to President Trump. Trust me.
Exactly. So we want to give the conservatives at every level, whether it's pre-K all the way through higher education, greater protection. I've only got 30 minutes, so Robert, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Bridget, thank you for driving down all the way. And as always, Ben and John, I don't ever give John enough recognition. He's back there behind the glass. When y'all see me making hand gestures, I'm not crazy. John and I are trying to land this plane.
At least that's not evidence of it.
Not evidence of it. All right. This is the Kim Hammer Show. Thanks for joining us. And by all means, in spite of politics, I hope you have a Merry Christmas this year. Remember, it's about Christ. Without Christ, we have no reason to celebrate.
101.1 FM, The Answer. KDXE FM, Kamak Village, Little Rock. A Salem Media Group station. 101.1 FM, The Answer.